Hello there. Welcome to Just the Dis. My name is Brian, and we talk about Blu-rays here. And I am continuing this sort of October thing I'm doing, just calling these horror trios. It's just going to be 3 Blu-rays, horror movies I've been watching or want to recommend. And I've got 2 new watches for these 3. I'll start with this one, which is the one I really enjoyed the most. And it's called Dark August, as you can see. I think it's from 1975 or 76. And this is part of the American Horror Project Volume 2 that Arrow put out a while back. And for whatever reason, I just never dug into that box until recently. My friend Bill Ackerman had sort of couched this film in the same category / company of movies like Messiah of Evil, and especially Let's Scare Jessica to Death, as they, like atmospheric horror movies of the 70s. And I love both those films, so I was like, oh, I don't know that one. What is that? And then, of course, I looked, and I'm like, oh, I own the Blu-ray. Let's watch it. And fascinating movie. Very fascinating. I'm not familiar with the director or the cast. There's an actor named J.J. Barry, who plays the lead role in the film, and he's really interesting. He and his partner in real life co-wrote the film, and then they star in it, and they're both good, which elevates the movie because it's I don't know, it's just interestingly well put together, well shot, and the acting is above your typical regional horror. I want to say this is shot in Vermont, rural Vermont. And just really fascinating movie. But the basic gist is that you have a guy who was working in the city, I forget in what capacity, but he has moved to the country to do, maybe he was an artist in the city and now he's an artist in the country. And he's got his studio in the country and he's working on some stuff, but he's dealing with a crisis in that we find out early on that he accidentally killed a little girl on a deserted country road. She ran out into the road and he completely accidentally, through no fault of his own, ended up killing her, and is just haunted by the incident, as you would imagine he would be. But on top of that, her grandfather, who you see pictured on the cover here, has taken up sort of just hanging out and staring at him, just like showing up near his house or seeing him in town and just giving him the evil eye. And it's just generally, making this guy really uncomfortable, and when he's already dealing with the incredible anguish of what he's done. It's just like, he's apologized to the guy and he knows that obviously he can't let it go, but he would like him to. And then he's also started to see this black figure near his house. It looks like sort of a cloaked black figure that's hanging out. And so he just, starts having these like breakdowns, and he's having these horrible nightmares, and he's trying to tell everyone he knows a little bit about what's happening. Not everyone, just a few close friends. And it just sort of progresses, and he ends up involving a psychic played by Kim Hunter, and the movie sort of ends up having this great, like, Curse of the Demon, Night of the Demon vibe too. It's just got a lot of fun stuff happening. And my friend Bill Ackerman, again, has described it as sort of a male version of Let's Scare Jessica to Death, and I think that's a really accurate and apt description. It's very much along the lines of that, without quite the same kind of supernatural energy that Let's Scare Jessica has. But anyway, it doesn't necessarily all come together perfectly, but I just can't stop thinking about it. Like, I watched it and it's just really sticking with me. So I wanted to bring this one up and show it as part of one of these trios. It is on Tubi if you want to watch it before you buy the American Horror Project set, but I do recommend those sets. Those are great sets from Arrow, and this is a nice little discovery that I made via that set. So anyway, that's Dark August. Then we have The Haunted House of Horror, and this one is from, I want to say, 69, And this is a movie that I've been familiar with for years because Quentin Tarantino played it as part of one of his festivals during one of the horror sections, I think. And so I'd always wanted to see it. And this is another one where I bought this Blu-ray, I want to say a year or so ago, and I just hadn't watched it yet. And it's a nice Blu-ray, actually. It's this company, Screenbound, and it's got a commentary from the director. It's got a making of. It's like an hour and a half long. It's like a really nice Blu-ray, and it's all region. I had to import it, but it's an all-region Blu-ray. Or maybe I got it on Amazon. I don't know. But anyway, this is a rarer movie, and for a long time, when I was aware of it, I couldn't see it easily. And so this Blu-ray is pretty nice. But it's a little slow, but interesting nonetheless. It's like swinging 60s London. Frankie Avalon is there. He's sort of this guy who has this group of friends, and there's a couple of them that we focus on, and they're having a party one night, and they get bored, and they're like, oh, let's go to this deserted house and just explore or whatever. And, that never goes good. And in this case, it doesn't. One of them is killed, and then they're dealing with that. And it takes a while to get to the last 15 minutes, and that's when it really makes its mark. It has some interesting stuff in the close. But if you're into like a generally vibey, still atmospheric, but like swinging 60s London thing that turns, into horror territory and has some, atmosphere to it, I think this is really interesting. So it's definitely one that I recommend tracking down. But just know it's not like this, where it's more, this is a little more horror straight, although it is, again, also very atmospheric in its way. So, but I dug this, and Frankie Avalon is interesting in this as the main actor that you recognize, really. And I don't know, but an interesting film for sure. And this Blu-ray, again, has some nice stuff on it. As does the Dark August Blu-ray. This is really great. It's got a nice interview with Stephen Thrower, and it's just a lot of good stuff on that Blu-ray, as you would expect from Arrow, of course. And then last but not least, I'm going to talk about Blood and Lace. Now, this one, unfortunately, I think is out of print. This is a Scream Factory release from several years ago now, and it's also fascinating. It says available for the first time on home entertainment format. I guess that's what this is. The 1971 cult favorite Blood and Lace is a twisted tale of horror, frequently cited as a precursor to the slasher films of the late 70s and early 80s. After her mother's brutal murder at the hands of a hammer-wielding maniac, teenaged Ellie Masters, Melody Patterson, is suddenly orphaned. She is sent to a home for children run by the enigmatic Mrs. Deere, that's Gloria Graham, who I love. In spite of the concern that Ellie will be the newest target of her mother's killer, but as terror strikes again and again, it becomes unclear who might be the bigger threat to Ellie's life, the mysterious murderer with a hammer or a sadistic new caretaker. With borderline insane plot twists and some unexpected performances by two faces familiar to fans of classic films and sitcoms, Vic Tayback is in this as well. And then Len Lesser, who was Uncle Leo from Seinfeld, who you totally recognize, just a great face. This little-known horror gem is jolting, terror-filled thriller you've got to see to believe. Yeah, it's bizarre. So, like, the girl, we open with, like, this couple laying in a bed and this POV shot of a hammer just, like, walking through a camera, and it's just, like, one of those things where you're seeing the hammer being held normally like a hammer, like you're going to hammer a nail, and it's walking from room to room. We see this couple sleeping, and eventually the POV enters that room, and we see the hammer turn over, and you're like, uh-oh. I thought they were just going to smash something. Now they're going to use the claw end of the hammer to, like, stab these people, and the killer does that and stabs them in the face. And it's awkwardly cut, like they aren't able to really show an impact or anything, obviously. And so it's a little odd, but it's bloody, and it sets up this whole, killer opening. And then we cut to this orphanage that Gloria Graham and Len Lesser run, and they're very creepy about it, and they've had some kids die on them, and they're trying to pretend they're still alive, and this girl whose mother is killed is now assigned to this orphanage, and so she's kind of like just feeling out like, what is this creepy place, and where is the killer, and what's happening. And yeah, it's just generally, there's a general sense of unease throughout the film, but it is fascinating, and I'm a fan of it for sure. And it's a bummer it's out of print. I hope someone will bring it back in. The one thing you'll be missing is there's a great commentary from Richard Harlan Smith on here, who I'm a huge fan of as a film writer and a commentator, and it's a really great track. So if you can find this Blu-ray, it's worth it, although I think it might be a little pricey now. But anyway, that's my horror trio for this week. Hopefully there's some recommendations in here for you to enjoy, but I will try to do a few more of these this month if I can. And enjoy the spooky movie season, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.